At least 3 out of every 4 persons in Africa cannot afford a healthy meal, and a fifth is undernourished. This translates to around 78% of the population, or over 1 billion of the continent's population. This is One Slot, and I'm Felicity Ezewike. Thank you so much for joining us. A UN report released on Thursday, December 7, states that nearly 282 million people in Africa, that's about 20% of the population, are undernourished, an increase of 57 million people since the COVID-19 pandemic. Around 30% of children are stunted because of malnutrition. The report, titled Africa Regional Overview of Food Security and Nutrition, Statistics and Trends 2023, says the continent remains off track to meet the food security and nutrition targets of the SDGs by 2030 and the Malabo targets of ending hunger and all forms of malnutrition by 2025. The Assistant Director General and Regional Representative for Africa at the FAO, that's the Food and Agriculture Organization, Abebe Haley Gabriel, in the report's forward said the deterioration of the food security situation and the lack of progress towards the WHO global nutrition targets make it imperative for countries to step up their efforts if they are to achieve a world without hunger and malnutrition by 2030. What are we missing? Who is dropping the ball? What is the connection to climate change? What must be done now to be able to make any significant difference? To help us find possible answers is the Food and Agriculture Program Manager, Action Aid Nigeria, Azubike Nwokoye. Thank you very much for joining us on One Slot.
Thank you.
Can you briefly explain? I know I gave a little background, but people would want to know what the key findings and some of the key statistics that the UN report has that is most unsettling for you.
Yeah, it's actually the number of hungry people. At the AU level, during the last Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Partnership Platform between end of October and early November 2023 in Lusaka, the data was it was about 250 million Africans that are hungry, and that is 4 in every 5 Africans. So it's quite challenging, and the truth is that as Africa we can do it. We have all the potentials, we have all the opportunities, but the political will is lacking, because this has to do with the right investments in the right places and at the right time. So, I mean, the statistics on stunting is alarming. And, you know, the thing is this, I think our political leaders are not doing enough political economy analysis to understand that agriculture is key, and agriculture kind of influences what happens in other sectors, whether it's education, health, or economy, or even in terms of security itself. And when you have the issues of climate change, we need to do a lot. We need to focus a lot on agroecology. We need to find ways of harnessing the floods to our advantage. Is about building big dams and water catchment areas and channeling water properly, so that even the little gains we make during this farming is not lost. And also, we need to also move away from dependence on rainy season, or saying that farming season and rainy season, because we need to do all-round cultivation. Our irrigation is so low. Our irrigation in Africa is quite low. And our post-harvest losses is crazy. Our post-harvest losses is at times over 50% production, or at times even up to 60%. So it's about political will. is about, when I was thinking also and asking myself, I've not heard in the news, like maybe South American food crisis, Australian food crisis.
So I know we have
continents.
peculiar situation in this part of the world, but why do you think ours seems to be such a huge burden, so to speak, for us to overcome? And we know that AU and UN agencies are calling for urgent action, asking, I don't know who specifically they're asking to take these actions. Is it the government, or is it maybe non-governmental organizations, really? Because there's so much that they can do. You were saying that in other parts, we don't hear these things.
Yes, so basically, it is our government, because the non-governmental organizations are doing so much. Now, there is Maputo Malabo declaration of at least 10% annual allocation of budget into the agriculture sector, and that is within the commitment of enhancing agriculture financing. So the government is not, across Africa, they are not committing to that 10%. And in cases where they even put any percentage, whether it's 2 or 3%, they end up not doing the proper releases and on time. So what usually happens is that at the end of the day, you might find out that a particular budget of a country, agriculture budget, is doing the capital component might end up doing 50% or 40%, and in some cases 20%. So it's about political will, and also the investment, where is it going to? And within that Malabo declaration and commitment, there is also a commitment on reducing hunger by 2025. And here the statistics is also showing that the number is paralleling, is going up as much as possible. So it's about investment, and investment in key areas. The right amount of investment and quality of investment, and the key areas are there. It is known. So the thing is this, I think the political class within Africa, they are not doing the right thing in terms of investment in agriculture. And the sector has a lot of potential, even in terms of providing the needed number of employment, even for young people.
Let me interject, Azubike, and let's talk about, you said government and political will. But even the people that are calling for this urgent action, there is one thing that they all agree. They take into account and the projected lower rate of economic growth. They also talked about high general and food price inflation and rising borrowing costs. We like to borrow a lot in Africa and the international market since 2022. Where I'm going is, with all of these fears, really, what are the chances that Africa can, realistically move the needle just a little further from where we are today?
So it's the same thing I'm saying, the right investment, the right amount of investment.
What areas, what kind of investment? Because if we talk investment, generalize it.
Okay, if African governments are borrowing and they had done the right investment, then they will profit from, but you can't borrow to fund non-productive sectors, or fund what is non-productive.
Okay, could you, I know this is putting you on the spot. I know this is putting you on the spot, but is it possible for you to make some suggestions as to the appropriate areas that governments in Africa can be investing in that will really make any sort of impact? Because if we keep talking about making the right investment, it's a soundbite. It's not concrete, is it?
Okay, so there are specific areas. One for quick wins. Our post-harvest losses in Africa is quite high, up to 50 or 60%, depending on where and what crop or value chain. investment in reducing post-harvest losses is needed urgently. Small cottage processing facilities, storage facilities, and so on, that's an area of quick win. And also even solar dryers, solar cooling systems, and so on to save our harvest. That's a key area. Another area will be the area of focusing on making sure that people have access to credit, cheap credit, single-digit interest rates, and easy credit and support to be able to also utilize the credit properly. And another area is extension services. Our productivity is also reducing, meaning that, for instance, in some countries in Africa, what you're going to get, the yield you're going to get per hectare is quite low compared to other places. So an extension is needed to provide farmers with the right support and knowledge and practices. And also technology transfer. Will have a lot of technology that has been introduced in terms of maybe high-yielding seeds, seedlings, early maturing livestock, and so on, which are still with the research institutes. The farmers can't get it without the support of extension agents. Investment needs to be done a lot on supporting extension agents. Another area is to focus on agroecology for climate resilience, which is a nature-based solution. Then we need to also increase funding to research and development, monitoring and evaluation, as well as coordination. Then investment needs to go into irrigation. And when we are talking about irrigation, let's move away from all these massive dams that are built and say it's for irrigation. Let's do something small for different communities, solar-powered boreholes, and so on. Without water, our productivity will continue to be low. Without water, we will continue to import milk because our cows cannot produce without enough water. So these are the key areas. And also, specific support should be provided in terms of investing in women in agriculture, youth in agriculture, then appropriate labor-saving technologies. Let's move away with these big tractors that we end up bringing, and they are not, when there is a breakdown, you need a lot of money to maintain it. And they are all packed up, and tomorrow governments will start looking for another technology. So these are the key areas. In terms of youth in agriculture, are you making agriculture very attractive? We need to invest in labor-saving technologies so that they don't, when young people look at the hoes and cutlasses, they get discouraged. But if they could have power tiller, small machines they can drive, they can fly drones to support.
I hesitate to interject because you're making, I've written out almost 10 investment areas that you've highlighted. Thank you very much for that. It's important. But I want you to talk specifically on the youth. I really needed, women are involved in farming, we know. They can do more. But the young people today, you said it has to evolve in a way that they can come in when you talked about not using holes and bringing more tech. But are young people really interested in going into agriculture from your experience? And what kind of conversation should, experts like yourself and government be having with the young people to encourage the kind of interest we need if we are to move forward with this, ending hunger?
Okay, so even my one-on-one conversations with young people are interested. I know number of young people into agriculture, but they all face similar challenges that have existed over time. So I used to say that as a person and as a young person, for instance, imagine I have a farm where I have all the machineries I need. I have an office there. I have a satellite dish. I have internet. I know how to identify my market. I fly drones to some areas to check how the crops are doing. I do a lot of stuff. Market access is not a problem. before harvest, I've gotten enough of my market, and I am even producing off-season also and making my money. Young people will definitely always be in agriculture, and that is what we need to do. But it has to take the right investment. What are the technologies? What are the innovations we are introducing? How easy is it to access? I mean, in terms of, there are many young people that want to start agriculture, but agriculture needs capital. They are faced with the challenges of access and control over land, even as a young person, even as young people. They are faced with challenges of access to labor-saving technologies. They are faced with a challenge of access to cheap credit without asking them for collateral. You know, these things are not rocket science. It is doable. You know, they are faced with all these challenges. But there are a lot of young people thriving in agriculture. And for those that are already thriving, if you find out most times they receive support, maybe through a grant or family support that help them to take off well. And they are also innovating and trying to see how to support young people, other young people. So it's a matter of, when I said political will,
I mean, it does come down to that. Yes.
When you talk about political will and commitment, you talk about, it's about putting your money where your mouth is. You know, our food import bill as Africa is so much. And the annoying part of it is that what we are importing is what we have competitive advantage.
But do you see African leaders prioritizing this urgency that's being pushed by the AU and UN agencies from what you've seen? Let's look at Nigeria, for instance. Do you think this current government is showing the right amount of interest in developing the agricultural sector?
So first of all, the president declared state of emergency on our food security. So in terms of declaration, yes, they have shown a certain level, but that will now be confirmed by the kind of investment and the results we'll get. You know, the proposed agriculture budget that has just been submitted is just about 1.32% of the whole thing submitted. So that is quite low. You know, that is quite low. And apart from that, our Nigerian sector is also riddled with lack of releases. And when the releases are going to come, they will come late towards the end of the year or when the farming season in many areas of the country has passed. So if farmers, for instance, receive fertilizer support and seed support after the season has passed, I mean, it doesn't make sense. It's waste of our commonwealth. So with this first budget on agriculture and other interventions they've started doing, it will be too early to, call. You know, one thing about agriculture is this: if there is increased productivity, if there is market access, if there is access to credit, if there is a lot of investment in labor-saving technologies and so on, that is the sector that is quickly evident that there is investment and a lot of things are happening. Our post-harvest losses in Nigeria, for instance, is at 3.5 trillion naira annually. And if you divide that across 36 and FCT, that's about 94.5 billion naira per state. No state is putting up to that amount within the agriculture sector in a year.
Quite
and
unfortunate.
Apart from that, when we talk about agriculture, the states are not also playing their role well, because it has to be, investments also has to be done by the states at the level of 10% and in these key areas, and they need to ensure timely releases and total releases, especially of the capital component of the budget.
All right. I'm told we have less than 4 minutes to wrap up. So I need you to speak as quickly as you can on the release of this report was at the COP28 conference, and the reason that was given was to highlight what they describe as the critical intersection between agriculture, food, hunger, and climate change. Could you explain to us quickly what that intersection is? I know you've talked about water, improving access to fertilizers and all of that, but how connected is climate change to the increasing hunger in Africa, and how can we begin to take action? It's a lot, but see what you can do.
So one thing about this is that also agriculture is one of the highest contributors to greenhouse gas emission. So it means that we need to also manage productivity in the agriculture sector to reduce greenhouse gas emission from agriculture. So we need to move to many options of sustainable practices, which the major one is investment in agroecology and doing agroecological practices. So the intersection is also this, because we need to also, apart from mitigate climate change within the agriculture sector, we have to also adapt. So in terms of mitigating, we need to put in measures to reduce what we also contribute in terms of contributing to climate change crisis through the agriculture sector. We need to also be able to adapt. So if the rainy pattern is changing and we have small irrigation to cope, those are the kind of investment. What are the early maturing seedlings, livestock we are using also? How are we doing agroecology to build the health of the soil? Because agroecology is a practice that also, builds nature, build the health of the soil. So those are some of the issues. Sure. And with climate change, productivity is going to reduce unless we take some specific steps to make sure that even within climate change impact, productivity is also increasing. So that's why you can see the intersection, because climate change contributes to the impact of hunger. Climate change is also driving farmer-herders clashes, And when I talked about...
I'm sorry to interrupt you again. I'm sorry to interrupt you again. We're out of time, but I want you to speak on the stunted growth in children. The report said, despite some improvement, children under the age of 5 are stunted in their growth. So I want you to drum home to us in 30 seconds, if you can, the implication of having children with this stunted growth for the future of Africa if we don't do something now.
So in terms of nutrition, nutrition contributes to human capital development. So when you have children stunted, it is not that they are just stunted in their body appearance, but also mentally. Cognitive ability is also reduced. So nutrition is very important because when a child is eating balanced diet, the child cognitive ability improves and the child is also bright. So this has a lot of impact in our human capital development. Children who are well nourished, do well in school and throughout life. So those are some of the issues. So it's about human capital development in terms of the alarm on stunting. We need to do something quickly. We need to also focus on nutritious agriculture, and we need to also provide the kind of support, because this is about poverty. This is strongly linked to poverty. And if the continent is poor, then this will continue to happen. But agriculture can also do that, solve the problem of food and solve the problem of nutrition if the right investments in these key areas are put in at the right time. And also, government investment is what also creates an enabling environment for even NGOs and also private sector to invest. The NGOs don't have as much money as government has. Government controls our commonwealth. And at times, some of us wonder, why are they not doing the right thing?
They must, if we have to move forward.
Are they not concerned?
Yes, they must if we have to move forward. I just want to quickly highlight some of the things you mentioned. Investment in post-harvest losses access to credit, extension services, tech
Post-harvest losses reduction.
Yes, post-harvest losses reduction. You also talked about tech transfer, research, development, among others. Thank you very much for speaking with us and the insights you've provided. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a breather now. When we return, we'll be discussing some of the factors hindering investment in Africa. Don't go away.